Carlos, is my website penalized? This is definitely one of the questions that I receive less frequently from business owners, but it's definitely a scary one. So today what I'm going to share with you is a specific method our community has developed that can help you check whether your website has been penalized by a link penalty or not. Now, once again, just to repeat, this specific process is used to check for link penalties that are affecting your website specifically. Now, I always recommend most business owners to add their websites to Google Webmaster Tools Search Console that will check your website for any kind of other types of penalties, such as the Panda penalty. But for link penalties specifically, there's a quick and simple way that has been approved by our community that you can use to see if your website has been penalized. So let's get right into it. Now, all I want you to do is copy the full URL of your domain name and remove the slash and remove any kind of subdomain or the secure SSL certificate that you have here. Or if your website is listed as HTTP, only leave your domain name. Now, what you're going to do is click enter. Now, the beauty of this is this. If your website has been affected by some sort of link penalty, Google usually will not allow a penalized site to rank in the top 3 pages of the search results. And this is exactly how we can check your website for penalties. Now, what we're doing here is we're checking whether your website has been accepted into the Google's search index. Now, if we include the full URL of your website in full, we will see if it has been indexed. Now, this doesn't necessarily check whether your site has been penalized or not, but we want to make sure if your website is showing up and whether it's indexed. If it's not indexed, you probably have a huge penalty on your website, or you have just created the website and you have no content yet and Google hasn't crawled it yet, so it didn't have the chance to get it included in their search index. So if you've just created your website, chances are that it hasn't been indexed yet. This is not necessarily bad because your site is completely brand new, and if that's the case, that's okay. You have to wait some time to give your website time for it to be indexed by Google. Now, if you know that you have registered your website and written content for it and fully published it 3 weeks ago, you can move on to the penalty check. Now, to do the link penalty check, what you are going to do is remove the dot from the domain name and the TLD, which is the top level domain. And a top level domain is the extension that you have. So whether it will be .com, .org, .net, .co.uk, you remove the dot from that TLD and you click enter. Now, if your website is showing up in the first spot, or at least in the top 3 pages of Google, you do not have a penalty that is directly related to links. Now, what you have to consider here, the key factor is the total amount of search results that should be present when you do this penalty should be not less than at least 70 to 80 results. Meaning, if you do this penalty check and if there are less than 70 to 80 search results, this check does not count, and you should use Webmaster Tools to really double check whether you have a penalty or not. Now, if the total volume of search results that are listed is above 70 to 80, and if your website is showing up on at least the top 3 pages of Google, you do not have a link penalty. Now, ideally, of course, you want your website to show up in the first position of Google because you're literally looking up your website's domain name. Now, if your website is not showing up, there's the third stage that you can do in order to really make sure that whether you have a penalty that's a link penalty or not. And you do exactly this. You include the dot symbol in the domain name and you copy the part of your page title of your homepage and include it in the search box and click enter. If your website is showing up number 1, you do not have a link penalty. If your website is still not showing up, most likely you have been affected by some form of link penalty that has been caused by bad SEO, or penalty that has been inflicted to you by negative SEO. Now, when I say whether your domain name is appearing, I do not mean that. So when you do the link penalty check, if some of your pages show up, that does not mean that your website is showing up. You want to see your homepage specifically, meaning that you want to see the full homepage URL of your site, not a page name. You want to see your full homepage. Once again, this is exactly how you check your website for any kind of link penalties that your site might be affected with. Thank you.